Parliament against the king. England had only just become Protestant. What king brought about Protestantism in England? Henry VIII. Henry VIII. You know that big sort of heavy sort of chap that we show with 6 wives. He was beheading all the wives because he didn't want the Vatican to get control again. And you know, it was all these you know, they have a lot of dramas on television. You probably have seen them, the 6 Wives of Henry VIII. They have, it's dramatized, it's on the History Channel. Then you have Elizabeth in the movies and so on and so forth. You know, she's the descendant of one of the women that he beheaded, which is why she never married. So she became the Virgin Queen because she wouldn't marry because she didn't want to get in this problem of, you know, what was going to happen with what husband they were going to force on her. And that's why we have places in America called what? Virginia. Virginia. Named after her, because she was the Virgin Queen. And, you know, if you saw the pictures of her later night, she's all made up in white. She powdered her skin, she wore white clothes, she whitened her hair and so on, to sort of make this apparition of this image that she wanted to project. She was a very clever politician. But in any case, in any event, during her reign, they were still fighting the Catholic return. You know, Shakespeare, his plays are a lot about that, because he was under the gun of Elizabeth's secret police. You say, why was Shakespeare under the gun of, there have been some good History Channel things on it, and very well done. Because his family was Catholic sympathizers. They were against the Elizabeth monarchy, and one of his first cousins was a famous poet, who was a Catholic poet, who was executed by Elizabeth, and he always had to hide his sympathies, but in the plays he was always attacking things. It's very interesting, really interesting to get into a deep history of Shakespeare, where he gets these ideas from and so on, but he was always under suspicion. So this situation was kept on going throughout the Elizabethan period. So you know, it's good for dates. Everybody knows when the Spanish Armada was defeated. What date was that? Hello? I'm going to upgrade your knowledge here. It's an easy date. So that was when the last try of the Spanish, and see, the Spanish were active in trying to take England back, active in the Low Countries and so on. It was all part of these wars, and the wars went on because the Duke of Marlborough is the next generation. He's not even fighting yet. He's in the 1600s. The wars have moved to Europe against this someone called Charles V, who was called the Holy Roman Empire. I think he was a Habsburg ruler, but he ruled Spain too. It's very odd. All of it's very, very curious, and I'm not a great expert on it. But it's an easy date to remember that the struggles are still going on in the late 1500s. So then Cromwell really puts paid, because there's still the suspicions are there, because they bring in a king from Scotland, because Elizabeth doesn't have any children, and he was originally a Catholic, but he agreed to convert to Protestantism, James I, which is why we have the King James Bible, because they translated the Bible into the common tongue at that time. So that's the early 1600s. So he was, you know, he stayed faithful, but his children, I think it was Charles I, James II, Charles II. I don't know which one was finally beheaded by Cromwell, but they were making plans to return England to the Church of Rome's fold. And Cromwell and his people found out about it, objected to it. Mary Queen of Scots was one of these people who they were involved with. They disposed of her too. In the previous generation, she was a Catholic monarch and so on. So that was all going on. This struggle was going on. So Cromwell, 1640s, so it's an easy date to remember. America had already been settled. Plymouth colony, 1620. Pilgrims are these Cromwell-type English Protestant Puritans who are settling the New World, you know. It's before Cromwell, so they're trying to find some sort of sanctuary. And then the Cromwell affairs in England, and Cromwell, of course, is just total Puritan, very military-minded, very capable guy. But he invites the Jews back to England for the economic aspect of the thing, and he invites them back from Holland. That's where he invites them back, and from that moment on, Jews are returning to England. So these things are happening all over. So in France, you never thought I'd get back to where I was, but I sometimes have to fill in. You know, you can tell people historical things, but if you don't give them any background to pin it on, they're lost, right? So if you don't have any sort of you know, plugs to put things in, then you don't know where you are. So I try to give you something, and you have to go further in your own lives if you're interested in history and try to, you know, get a hold of it further over your own readings. But I try to give it to you a little bit. So these Marranos were coming across into southern France in the, you know, 1500s, early 1600s. And you see, these are Sephardim. Remember I told you what Sephardim were? I'll do it again, but I'll just write the two things down. I am in Hebrew is always a plural. Sephardim, Ashkenazim. What are Sephardim? Huh? That's Ashkenazim. Sephardim are what?
Jews from Iberian Peninsula.
Spain, yeah, Jews from Spanish Jews. But later the term began to cover the whole Jewry around the southern and eastern Mediterranean. So everybody, even if you were in Egypt, even today now in Israel, Israel is totally divided between Ashkenazi. You go to the country and, you know, all this is alive and well. You know, you walk into the country and, you know, are you a Sephardi or are you an Ashkenazi? I mean, that's just like almost the first question anyone asks anybody. Means, are you an Oriental Jew from south of the Mediterranean and across to Iraq and down to Yemen or into Turkey or the Balkans? The Balkans were, I told you, had their own language. A mixture of Spanish and Hebrew, called what? Ladino, right. And then in the other Jews are known, I don't know why, are Ashkenazim after what they thought was the biblical name for Germany. I don't know if it was or it wasn't. But that's where the idea that they spoke a kind of guttural German came from. And the Jews did.